global security situation, it looks a bit chaotic now, with Russia challenging the international community. ISIS in the Middle East is becoming a big issue, and also China is not wondering about. So I'd like to get, if you can, your overview of the global overview of security challenges. And I know you can speak about it for an hour, but do your best.
Sure. Look, first of all, thanks, Gabi, for the invitation. Thanks to all of you for being here. Congrats to the INSS for another great program, and specifically for the cybersecurity program that you oversee there. First, I think I would actually want to say that as you look at these different situations, and obviously do it through a cyber lens, which I think is what we want to do here this morning, that what jumps out at you before you even discuss that is that there is a whole new dimension of warfare. And along with ground, and then there was sea, and then air, and space, subsea, you now have obviously cyberspace. And frankly, the sooner that in the United States, as an example, we can have the cyber command elevated to a full-fledged combatant command status, the better we are. And it will be a hybrid, I think, that would be a cross between a geographic combatant command and a central command responsible for an area of responsibility, which will be cyberspace. It will be a force provider, like Special Operations Command, providing cyber operators and expertise to the geographic combatant commands. And I think it will likely even have service-like responsibilities in the sense that it will, like the Army, Navy, Air Force, recruit, train, equip, develop, assign, and so forth. I think in certain respects, certainly the services will still have theirs as well. So with that out of the way, then when you look at these different locations and threats that you talked about, if you focus first on ISIS, I think the distinguishing feature between the Islamic State and, say, Al-Qaeda, its forerunners as Islamic extremist organizations, is really the ability that is demonstrated in cyberspace. Its ability to use cyberspace for recruiting, to proselytize, to share tactics, techniques, and procedures for use of explosive attacks, to, again, inspire others and so forth. And that has proven to be a very, very deadly capability in the hands of individuals who, again, are very, very skilled in the use of this. And it's taken us some time to respond to that, but I'm heartened to see what is happening now with the new organization in the Department of State, with the additional emphasis in the Department of Defense, not just in, say, NSA, but also U.S. Central Command and a variety of other organizations that are starting to address this. With the assistance now of the various social media organizations, Twitter and others, taking these sites down as quickly as they can be identified to them. When you look at the threat of Russia and what Russia has demonstrated, say, in the Ukraine, where they seized Crimea and then supported separatists who are taking control of the Donbass, you see an entire array of capabilities on display. Everything from essentially very good cyber offensive activities to shut down certain elements of, say, the Ukrainian electrical grid, or all the way down to tactical activities that deny the ability of anything to work, cell phone, radio, GPS, what have you. You see even distributed denial service. Again, lots of different capabilities all on display. And I think that that's very, very important to observe, and it's very important for us to learn from that. We've seen what they've done to the Baltic states with this capability as well. And it's an indicator of the kinds of capabilities that we would have to contend with were we indeed to get into it in some way with, say, Russia. The distinguishing feature when you go to China, I think, is just the sheer scale and scope of the theft of intellectual property that's taken place through cyberspace, and organized directed effort going after specific technologies that are in line with the economic development plan, and that the FBI and others have conservatively calculated to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 trillion worth of intellectual property over the decade or more that this has been ongoing. So again, very, very significant. The other, sometimes less remarked on but publicly acknowledged activity there is the scale of the cyber reconnaissance. And some of this is very, very troublesome because there is knowledge of cyber reconnaissance of the various industrial operating systems for the electrical grid, for water systems, a variety of these. The so-called SCADA systems, as you know, in many cases are based on 1980s or 1990s technology. In fact, some of the very Israeli startups that are here are focused on helping provide cybersecurity for these
or existing legacy systems, old systems.
Absolutely. I mean, Indigee is a good example of that. There are others in the hall that individuals can focus on. You know, KKR, the firm in which I'm privileged to be a partner, global investment firm, is indeed invested in a variety of different, well, we do growth capital with KKR. And then as an individual venture capitalist, I'm invested in a number of others, some of which again are also Israeli Windward, as you know, maritime big data firm.
I wonder what you mentioned that these capabilities of Russia, ISIS in some extent doing social media, mainly communicating, but yet we didn't see ISIS do some real, IP theft or real, they don't have the motivation, but real damage to any should they have the capability, they would have done it.
We have seen Iran do it. We have seen the Syrian electronic army
but ISIS
do it.
Iran is maybe Iran is involved there in Syria.
Well, Iran certainly has been engaged. I mean, Iran caused the damage, literally physical damage, to the systems of Aramco. Iran to control the dam in upstate New York. So there's no question about the capability there, and that it has actually used it. And then when you look at the Syrian electronic army, probably half the people in this room and I have all been the target of our individual email accounts of the SCA, and I'm sure yours as well. Probably.
But my question was, most of the cyber capabilities that you see are really focusing on national infrastructure. I mean, they do DDoS or on banks or...
Well, it depends on the organization.
My question is, do you see any place for cyber capability in the tactical warfare area?
Sure.
Do you see, for example, a battalion commander using some kind of cyber capabilities in this kinetic assault?
Sure, I do.
How do you see it?
And well, I would also see it in the targeting process. One of the breakthroughs, really, of the surge in Iraq, and this is all publicly known, it was the creation of a massive database in Baghdad, because we literally had more big data than we could ship back through the pipes to NSA or the CIA. So we had to do our own intelligence fusion. And NSA, General Keith Alexander, my West Point classmate and friend, sent a number of people out, deployed them to Baghdad, came out a lot himself, built this massive capability called the RTOG, and it was essentially our own big data cloud, and even brought the applications engineers, software applications engineers out. And we were turning apps within a matter of weeks. I mean, it's amazing how productive people can be if they don't have anything to do at night, work on weekends, and can't drink. It's amazing. And what this essentially did was digitize everything, every form of intelligence that we had, SIGINT, MASINT, IMINT, HUMINT, you name it. Again, lots and lots and lots of metadata off certain devices and so on. Put it into that big database, fuse it, and then using these very powerful apps that kept being refined within matters of weeks, developing the targeting information that was so critical to us. Beyond that, again, just by definition, how you define cyber, does it get into the EW spectrum? Does it include other activities? And one that we shouldn't overlook is OSINT, open source intelligence, is hugely important. as the director of the CIA, I was privileged. We oversee the OSINT, if you will, and the Open Source Intelligence Center for the entire intelligence community. And again, hundreds of individuals are engaged around the world sifting through everything from social media to traditional media and gleaning insights from that that are really quite breathtaking at times. The predictability that they developed about what is going to happen in a certain square, on a certain day, a certain number of demonstrators and everything else.
So this is the case with what we call the lone wolf challenge. You know, how to intercept.
Well, that's why the lone wolf
challenge. How to intercept it.
That's why
any ideas
such a difficult. Certainly, and again, we're doing, I think, very impressively in the United States in the law enforcement community. The various programs, again, fusing everything again. So the counterterrorism task forces that exist in all the major cities and metropolitan areas of the United States, led by the FBI, but with all of the various state and local entities represented, as well as intelligence community organizations, all operating within the confines of the law, needless to say. And this has been very, very important to identifying would-be lone wolves, and has done quite impressively, although there obviously have been some of those that have not been thwarted. But a lot of this does come down to human intelligence. It's a reason, and I noted, for example, in the op-ed in the Washington Post the other day, that in fact, Muslim Americans are hugely important to our effort domestically, not just overseas, to gain information and to get alerts and warnings about individuals within their communities who might be suspected of heading down that path.
But the challenge of, you know, if there is an infrastructure, their infrastructure is a bit more easier for the intelligence to get information.
Sure.
When someone wakes up in the morning and decides to do something, how do you envision the challenge of getting some indicators that something is going to happen with this individual?
Sure, and again, sometimes it can come from the social media activities of the individual. Again, if the
You've got some indicators already.
There's some indicator, the individual has to go out and buy something that's going to be used in an attack. Again, there's a host of different indicators that can be present, but the key at the end of the day, I think, almost always is going to be the local community, and it's why community relationships are so important.
The U.S. Cyber Command, I think, published a couple of weeks ago, it was published, I don't know if it was formal publication, that it is going to launch or launching a cyber offense on ISIS to enhance its cyber offensive activity against ISIS. Now, shutting down Twitter accounts and this kind of thing, that's okay, but is there, do you think there is something that is beyond just playing with the social media that is very useful for ISIS, something beyond?
Well, if I knew about it, I obviously wouldn't share it, but
share what you can.
I mean, what's publicly known as an example is reportedly UK SOF shut down all communications of ISIS in North Africa, and actually within Libya. So you have those are more tactical capabilities, but there are also very publicly known operational strategic capabilities that can be used as well. Certainly, the greater activity, you can't allow social media, this is a domain, this is a new battlefield, and it cannot be uncontested space for the enemy. And in broad terms, what is being done, of course, is to contest that space in a host of different ways, more effectively and more aggressively than has been the case in the past. And as I mentioned up front, there is more of that activity going on. And not just, again, by the government agencies, but also with respect to the coordination with the social media providers, so that they will shut down these spaces as well. And they have been quite responsible in doing so.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I want to go to the second issue the relations between the government needs and the business sector. So you mentioned the social media providers, but there are also other providers. We've been challenged to see the Apple issue with the FBI and these kind of issues that are now becoming more and more significant. How do you see this relation, government and, let's say, business sector or public sector, global providers of services?
Well, in the past, there has been a good relationship. There's been a productive relationship. That relationship, I think, should continue. It's not a relationship that necessarily needs to be talked about publicly all that often. Second, actually, let me offer what I get asked about the Apple issue a fair amount. And I have two what seem to be perhaps contradictory big ideas, although I don't think they are. The first is that I don't believe that the government should compel an IT firm, an Apple or whatever it may be, to create a backdoor for the government to get data that otherwise would be inaccessible. I just think that that's bad from all respects. It's bad from privacy, data that's there, the vulnerability that creates, and indeed the business disadvantage that it poses on U.S. firms. Noted that Apple on any given day, depending on the price of crude oil or other factors, can be the biggest or among the 2 or 3 biggest firms in the entire world. It's a huge success for United States business. But having said that, I also firmly believe that the U.S. Intelligence community, law enforcement, should be able to crack any encryption, any device that is out there. And again, I don't think this is mutually exclusive. I do think we have that expertise that's needed. And again, I don't think, though, necessarily you want to talk about it a great deal. I think one of the challenges here is that when positions are staked out, when it becomes a hill to die for business or for, let's say, law enforcement, you've actually created a conflict that could make it more challenging down the road.
My last question will be related to the U.S.-Israeli business, cyber, government relation related to cyber. So what's your vision on this kind of cooperation, either between the governments, which is practically happening,
sure,
but between Israeli businesses and either U.S. government or federal government or U.S. businesses?
Look, there is a long history here. Even when there has been seeming discord at political levels, there has always been an extraordinarily close relationship between Israeli military, intelligence, even Shin Bet, domestic security, and various counterparts in the United States government. These have been unbelievable relationships, and they will continue to be, and I think they just get better and better because the expertise on each side gets better and better. When it comes to the business, the ecosystem that has been created in Israel is just extraordinary. I think it's second only to the United States in terms of just the sheer numbers and quality of startups. It's hugely impressive to go out there, as I do for KKR, as an individual, to see what is being done. And I think, though, that the big issue here is how a startup nation can become a scale-up nation. The model in the past. We are working on it. Actually, firms like KKR are helping. The issue has been that the startup in Israel gets going. Valuation climbs and scaling, maybe over $100 million. That's incredibly attractive. Let's sell it. Instead, what has to happen, I think, increasingly, is that startup needs to establish a base in the United States where you have the market size that is necessary to scale. And so rather than selling to a U.S. IT firm, come over, invest, build, and then scale it in the United States.
The next speaker, again from Checkpoint, this is our model how to
Well,
create a startup to a big company.
and what he has done is what I think a lot of others need to do, so that that explorer ecosystem can build and grow and become ever more powerful.
Thank you very much, General, for your time and for your just
Pleasure to be with
just
you.
a big round of applause from the General.